Coming up this hour on American Graduate Day, from HBO Sports, Emmy Award-winning journalist Bryant Gumbel, and the co-anchor of Public Television's Nightly Business Report, Susie Garib.
In the last 2 years, Nevada's graduation rate has risen from 49% to 62%. Vegas PBS is proud to be part of American Graduate Day. Viva Las Vegas!
My name is Jasmine Afrikawala. I'm a librarian at the Dallas Public Library, and I serve as our Community Engagement Administrator. You want to start?
My name is Neide. I'm from Brazil. This program is very important for me because I'm living here now, and I didn't speak English before come here.
Our programs primarily serve the non-English speaking population and the populations who don't have their high school diploma. So in Dallas County, that's 25% of the population. In 2012, we started about 4 classes at 3 locations. We served just under 100 students, parents and children. Now we provide 40 classes a semester. We reach almost 2,000 adults and children each year. I'm first generation. Both my parents are immigrants. They both immigrated here in the 70s. And my mother is from Mexico, and she taught herself English. So when I saw these moms out there in the community who had this love for their children, they wanted to help their children, I couldn't help but see my mom and so many of those moms. Parents want to provide for their children, and children want to make their parents proud. Learning English is the most basic way they can help their children.
Hi, I'm Ken Burns. I'm so honored to be a part of the American Graduate Day. I'm in the history business. I make documentary films about American history, and it's so important that we know about our past. You can't possibly know where you are or where you're going unless you know where you've been, and that's history. Now, too often people have turned history into a dry subject, castor oil or broccoli, something you know that's good for you but hardly good tasting. I've tried to remember that the word history is mostly made up of the word story. And if you tell a story, people will come. And if you know the stories of the past, you'll know a little bit more about how to deal with our complicated present and how to go forward from that present into our vast and unknown future.
Welcome back to American Graduate Day. I'm Bryant Gumbel. During today's program, you've been hearing compelling stories about organizations and people working to improve the education experience of students in America. We have been calling them American Graduate Champions. In this half hour, we are privileged to present excerpts from 4 talented filmmakers that portray very different snapshots of the story of education in America today. Each one of these documentaries is being brought to you by Public Television. These enlightening films are 180 Days, Hartsville, The Home Stretch, All the Difference from Wes Moore, and Ken Burns' film, The Address.
I was born in New York, Brooklyn, New York. Then I stayed in New York about 6 or 7 years, attended first grade in New York public schools, and I can remember my brother walking me to school most of the mornings. That's about all I remember about New York. My mom wanted to do better for us, and so her and my dad moved us from New York to South Carolina. So I started here in the 2nd grade. My brother, he was 13 when we moved here, and I can remember him getting in trouble for school for simply not saying yes ma'am. It wasn't that he was disrespectful, he just said yes, because in the city we weren't taught to say yes ma'am, no ma'am, yes sir, no sir. I think to some degree we have evolved, but we still have a long way to go. Hi, Mr. Mitchell. Hi, Mr. Johnson. We still have a very long way to go. During my time in school as a high school student, I believe it was in '94, the federal government came in and made us desegregate. And I was a part of that desegregation movement. And the funny thing about it is I never knew we were segregated before the desegregation movement. But I found Darlington County Schools to be very supportive and nurturing. My situation wasn't always the best situation, but I would say that the people within the school system really supported me and valued me as a person, and they invested time in me. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. We're here this afternoon for a special assembly. It's a very, very big deal. Give me a thumbs up if you think you made the All-A honor roll already this year. Wait a minute. We've been in school how many days? 3. And you think you made the All-A honor roll already? Yes. Teachers, what do you think? Everyone? Okay. Mr. Brown, I know you're going to tell me something differently. Mr. Brown, everyone. I had the opportunity to work in this school before I came here to be principal. First, I was the elementary curriculum facilitator, and this person was the person that was assigned to the lowest achieving schools in the district to try to bring them up to meet state standard. And West Hartsville was one of those schools that were in need. All right, first person on my list is Martin Alejo. For one thing, our test scores are not the best. Probably the biggest, most glaring thing that stood out to me was the decline in test scores from the time they left our feeder school until the time they left us and headed to middle school. They come to us prepared, and they're leaving us unprepared for middle school. That was a very glaring problem. So the question was, why and how do you fix it? Rashawn Johnson. And that takes changing the culture. That takes having high expectations. That takes realizing that every single child that walks in the door is different. I think that's everyone now. Let's give Ms. Wood's class a round of applause.
I love teaching at West Hartsville. I mean, it's just, these are the kind of kids that need us the most. But as far as the teaching question goes, it's always something that people ask teachers. And I guess it's a really hard question. It's not as simple as saying, I love kids, because obviously we love kids. Our population of students are completely different than, the population of a lot of schools. I kind of often compare our school to a small inner city school. We have the same kind of issues and problems that they have in huge cities in their inner city schools. Poverty, homelessness, low socioeconomics plays a huge part.
Ms. King has very, very high expectations for each one of you sitting here. I still don't know if I'm ready to be leader of my own school, but leadership is a funny thing. It's not about being in charge. It's about having the ability to empower others. So I quickly found out that if you can't empower others, then you're ineffective, because leadership does not become a movement until you have your first follower.
I have to be my own parent. I don't need anybody to tell me to take things seriously. Loneliness is one of my worst enemies, and I wouldn't wish it not even to any enemy. We are in one of my teacher's houses. Whenever I needed somewhere to sleep or to eat or whatever I needed, she was there for me. Mr. Barrow?
Yes, honey.
Do you have like a Spanish-English dictionary thing?
Hold on.
What I like the most about Hamlet is I felt the anger that he felt in a way. My dad had this huge problem with immigration, and he had to leave. My mom remarried pretty quick. And so I felt really betrayed by them. So I could connect that with Hamlet.
Which scene is this for?
The To Be or Not to Be soliloquy. Mr. Barrow introduced me to Shakespeare, which was life-changing for me. I had to be off of school for 3 months, so I failed most of my classes. I need to get back on track so I could be better in the future.
I am the worst grocery shopper ever. What about lasagna? Could you eat lasagna?
I'll eat lasagna.
Maja, what is in the pot with the ramen noodles? Other noodles?
Yeah. She's making cake and she's making noodles. And Mom's making spaghetti. This is mine because I'm hungry.
Yeah, I know.
Here you go. Need help? Okay, thanks.
You might not want to.
I always joke that if I wasn't married, then I would have an attic full of bunk beds and high school students. And that could still happen. Bobby's bending more every day. I knew that he felt like he didn't have anywhere to go. He would say, drop me off at this place. It wouldn't be the place they were living the day before. And then I started to see him circling. And so then I started circling. And I was like, he's not going home. His father is just incredibly mobile. And the parents divorced long ago. The mom is remarried and the daughter lives there, but it doesn't appear or have been offered that he lived there. When we offered room, he took it immediately, and in front of me, he called both parents. And there was no, Rocky, come here, you know. And so that was heartbreaking.
This is where I live, I guess. So
it's not fair. Do you just let somebody wither?
Live on the south side of Chicago. Anybody can tell you, it's not easy. But my particular area I live in, you know, it's full with drugs, violence.
Am I scared? Yeah, because I know that the future can be disturbed or can be messed up by one wrong decision that I make. Like with the stuff that's happening these days, like students getting killed, like a 15-year-old boy getting stumped to death, or like a grown man found in the alley. Like that stuff really scares me because I don't never want that to be me.
I'll try to stay positive just to keep my mind off the streets and the gang violence and the drugs. Just because you come from the area don't mean you got to fall into it. But it's real life.
The thing that I'm most nervous about going to college is the work. I'm really not a study guy, so with me having to study a lot more and do a lot more things, that's what I'm most nervous about.
Mark?
Crime is a violation of norms that have been written into law, and that a majority of the African American males are incarcerated. We have the highest percentage of incarceration rate. That's not a good picture. That's a high.
I want to be a police officer, and I see myself with 2 kids and seeing my grandkids. The expectation for me here from the outside view is like very huge on my shoulders because I see that I have some very huge shoes to fill. And if I don't fill them shoes, I'm going to let a lot of people down, and I don't want to do that. I deal with the pressure day by day. I try not to think about all of that. I just try to think about completing this mission and accomplishing, getting my 4-year degree, and going back and showing you can make it out of Inglewood, doing some of the things I did and still be successful.
It's been hard being a black man at Lake Forest College. There's not that many of us on this campus. You know, it'll take a rocket scientist to figure that out. I'm doing something that most African American men is not doing. It's excelling at a predominantly white college.
109 class about this.
You can feel the vibe when I walk into the classroom, and for me only being the only African American man in the classroom, you know, the rest of the people is Caucasian, white. Now, you can just tell by the look of their eyes. They look at me like, oh, what the heck are you doing here? You know, why I'm in the class with you? You can feel that vibe. You know, I'm not naive. You know, it might be some people, you know, white people say like, oh, wow, he's here, and you know, might be curious about me. I'm not a psychic, but regardless, I don't pay no mind to it at all. I just pay attention to my schoolwork. Any classroom I go into, I always sit in the front. I always sit in the back because I'm here to focus on the professor. I never let the people who criticize me determine my destiny or my future and my purpose I have at this college.
When you're up there, if you make a mistake, right, which might happen, Annie's right there. She can give you a cue, and because she's really close to you, she can probably give you a cue that nobody else is really going to hear except you, right?
It'll be subtle, it'll be quiet.
You will remember this day, okay? You'll remember how you feel right now, maybe a little nervous, maybe really confident in preparation for tonight. So sit up for a second. Let's sit up straight. Let's soak it in. Let's take a moment and just recognize how we're feeling, get centered, get ready to launch into this really special day today, and feel really proud of what you've accomplished.
Top button's important, believe it or not.
Fourscore and 7 years ago.
7 years ago.
7 years ago.
Our fathers brought forth on this continent a new nation.
A new nation, conceived in liberty and dedicated to the proposition that all men
are created equal.
34 of the boys at Greenwood recited that night, but not all performed the address. A handful of students, some of whom presented the year before, chose alternative speeches.
I'm sorry, I don't want to be an emperor. That is not my business. I don't want to rule or conquer anyone. I should like to help everyone if possible. Jew, Gentile, black, white. We all want to help one another. Human beings are like that. We want to live by each other's happiness, not by each other's misery.
Fellow citizens, pardon me. Allow me to ask, why am I called upon to speak here today? What have I, or those I represent, to do with your national independence? Are the great principles of political freedom and of natural justice embodied in that Declaration of Independence extended to us?
We shall fight in France. We shall fight in the seas and oceans. We shall fight with growing confidence and growing strength in the air. We shall defend our island, whatever the cost may be. We shall fight on the beaches. We shall fight in the landing grounds. We shall fight in the fields and in the streets. We shall fight in the hills. We shall never surrender.
Now we are engaged in a great civil war, testing whether that nation or any nation, so conceived and so dedicated, can long endure.
We are met on a great battlefield of that war. We have come to dedicate a portion of that field as a final resting place for those who here gave their lives that that nation might live.
It is altogether fitting and proper that we should do this.
But in a larger sense, we cannot dedicate, we cannot consecrate, we cannot hallow this ground.
The brave men, living and dead, who struggled here
Have consecrated it far above all propelled as a tract.
The world will little note nor long remember what we say here, but it can never forget what they did here.
It is for us, the living rather, to be dedicated here, the unfinished work which they who fought here have thus far so nobly advanced.
It is rather for us to be here dedicated to the great task remaining before us, that from these honored dead we take increased devotion to that cause for which they gave the last full measure of devotion.
that we here highly resolve that these dead shall not have died in vain.
That this nation, under God, shall have a new birth of freedom, and that government of the people, by the people, for the people, shall not perish from the earth.
Thank you for staying with us on American Graduate Day. Now, those were some remarkable stories. The rest of this hour, we are talking about special needs communities. According to the National Center for Education Statistics, sadly, only 67% of students with learning disabilities graduate high school with a regular diploma. This hour, we are looking at groups that are helping to change that staggering statistic. For just over a decade, Eye to Eye has existed as an organization that matches college students who have learning disabilities with middle school students who have similar issues. Now, this innovative mentorship pairing teaches kids that they are not alone in their disabilities, and it gives them the tools they need to be successful. I'm joined now by Eye to Eye Chief Operating Officer Marcus Sutra, mentor and chapter leader Sammy Stefanik, and Eye to Eye mentee, Joseph Dennis. And Marcus, I'd like to start with you. You have dealt with dyslexia your entire life, but you are also ADHD. Tell me how that works.
Sure. Basically, my dyslexia, I would say the best way to explain that is I have an avoidance of text issue. And then with my ADHD, I just have really difficulty focusing in like high stimulating environments. So Times Square is not a good time for me. It's a dangerous place. So, but yeah, I went through school and really felt marginalized and alone by my experience in school, and didn't really know anyone else with a learning difference. And when I ended up going on to college and kind of refusing a lot of my accommodations, and kind of really trying to stay away from the shame and doubt that is often associated with having a dyslexia or ADHD. And then ended up really wanting to go into education so that I could make a difference for other kids.
And you are certainly doing that with Eye to Eye. Talk to me a little bit about Eye to Eye and the projects your organization does to help other students.
Sure. So we are a mentor organization for people with learning disabilities by people with learning disabilities. And what we do is an art-based curriculum focused on social emotional skills. So focused on students' self-esteem, their self-advocacy skills, their metacognition, which is a fancy word for thinking about how you learn. So like a great project we'll do with the students, we do an art-based curriculum where they'll create a diorama that's their ideal learning environment. So you would create something that, how does that environment work for you? What do you need to have in that environment? Is it a distraction-free environment? What kind of accommodations do you need in that environment so that students can be successful in their classroom and in their life?
Sammy, how did you find Eye to Eye?
Well, I was a chapter coordinator for NYU, and I found that just being involved in the program and learning people, even at 20, learning with people that have similar disabilities that I do was just really encouraging for myself. And then being able to pass that on in the schools was great, and I loved working with the kids, and I was able to oversee the whole art room, which is a really special role because I got to see every kid come in and every one of them leave, and we do a lot of projects based on students talking about their strengths and weaknesses. And at the beginning of the semester, a lot of the kids struggle finding strengths. And even their strengths tend to not be very academic strengths. They could be they're a good friend, which is a great strength, but it's not that I provide a lot of really insightful thoughts in class, which they do, and they just don't see that as a strength. And at the end, there's still doubt, but the strengths come much easier, which is really beautiful to see.
And Joseph, you were language challenged when you were very young. Can you tell me a little bit about how that happened?
When I was a baby, I was talking at one point, and then one time I couldn't talk, I couldn't do anything. So my mom took me to the hospital, and the doctor said that I would never be able to speak, I would never be able to use my hands or communicate with people. When I was at home, I started speaking again when I was around 4 or 3, but
just suddenly you began speaking
yes.
again. But there were still issues that had to be resolved, and you found your way to Eye.
Yes.
Tell me what you loved about it.
All the activities were really good. They were really fun. It would really help me through all my schoolwork because a lot of the teachers said back then that I wouldn't be able to make it through 5th grade. I wouldn't be able to stand here and talk to you today. But I'm going to 8th grade. I'm going to high school now. And I know it's stressful.
But you know what? It's a good kind of stress.
Yeah.
It is.
All the parents who have kids who have learning disabilities should have kids going to Eye to Eye because it really helps people.
I have learned a great deal from the three of you. I thank you so much for coming and helping us better understand a field and an environment, a life that sometimes we don't always know as much about as we should. You've been terrific. I thank you all. Thank you. Well, Eye to Eye, as you can see, is doing a great job showing middle school kids with learning disabilities that their future really is bright. Now, are you at home already working to help students on the path to graduation? Log on to AmericanGraduate.org and tell us your story. And stay tuned as our conversation about special needs continues.
American Graduate Day, a live nationwide outreach event.
As community volunteers, we're excited that WOSU Television is part of the American Graduate Day.
We love the work of our Columbus Champions of Education
and of WOSU.
everyone in middle school is trying to fit in. They're trying to be normal. People will see me as being different automatically because I'm missing my arms and I'm missing my legs. But I have been able to show others that we can accept each other. And it's trying to tell these individuals, these kids, it's like, no, you're different, but that's okay. And it's great that you're different because you are contributing. I was mostly picked on because people saw my limb differences. For Emmanuel and others like him, they see, oh wait, I'm not the only one.
Wait, what kind of legs do you have?
You're missing this arm or you're missing that leg, but look, you're able to do this much. That gives them the confidence to say, okay, I can do anything I want. Pull up and then using my chin. We have to accept each other, and when we do, then the person who's being picked on because they're different is able to focus on their academics. They're able to focus on getting to know other people. When they realize that they have everything that they need, then their school gets better and they start to make friendships. You have to be able to see beyond the physical stuff. Kids in high school can definitely graduate. They can go to college, they can get a degree in whatever they want. And that's the most important thing.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back. I'm Susie Garib. Well, Samir Madden, our American graduate champion from Tucson, Arizona, has provided us a powerful introduction to our next discussion. Any conversation about the high school graduation rate must include the fact that every community has to integrate and elevate their special needs students. Special needs students make up 13% of all students, but the graduation rate for students with disabilities is 20 percentage points below the national average. Joining me now are Lisa Goring, she's Executive Vice President of Programs and Services with Autism Speaks, and Erin Riley, Senior Director of Disability Services at Project Search. And welcome both of you, and thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Lisa, let me start with you. We know that Autism Speaks has done a fantastic job of raising awareness, of doing research, being an advocate, but what kind of success have you had in the area of education issues?
So in terms of education, we know that with 1 in 68 children, 1 in 42 boys that have autism, they're in every classroom and every community throughout our country. And so we really need to be able to provide the supports they need so that they can be successful in the classroom. And so we've done that through some of our toolkits and some of the grants that we've been able to give to the community so that they can fully embrace and support those learners.
And you know this subject very well because your son, Andrew, who just graduated from high school, does have autism. Mm-hmm. And when in all of his years of getting through high school, what would you say was the key education challenge that he faced?
So I think for him, he has some terrific strengths, but he also has some challenges that made academics difficult for him.
Like what?
So math is just really something that doesn't come easily to Andrew. And so it was important that we sort of work around that and really focus on his strengths and his ability so that he can be successful. And that was so important, and he was so proud the day that he graduated and walked with his class.
Oh, that's fantastic. Well, Erin, it's one thing to graduate from high school. It's another thing to get a job. And that's why you started Project Search, right? Like 20 years ago. How did that all come about?
You know, I'm a nurse and I work at a fabulous hospital, Cincinnati Children's Hospital Medical Center. And we believe in changing the outcome for every one of our patients. But for our kids with disabilities, changing the outcomes not as simple as a medical procedure.
No, right.
It's saying to them, we believe in you, we believe in your ability to grow up and get a job. And so we set about creating a training program that would allow our patients with disabilities to learn the skills they needed to be hired by our hospital, but also in the community. And it took off from there, actually.
Well, I'm sure you make it sound very easy, but I'm sure it was a real challenge. I think what's interesting is that you have so many major corporations that are backing you up and are sponsoring you, companies like GlaxoSmithKline, the big pharma company, Embassy Suites, Medtronic. Why is it that they have gotten involved?
I think because our program isn't rocket science, to be honest, and we require participation from community members. So you have to have a school partner, you have to have Voc Rehab, you have to have Department of Developmental Disabilities. We basically say to a community, who of you should be involved in this? How do we work together to create a better program, a better project that allows our folks to get the skills they need and it makes sense to business. It's a business-led initiative. We run it like a business, and they like it.
That's really great. You know, Lisa, for all of these kinds of programs and your organization as well, how would you say that the view is, the general awareness about autistic students? Is there still a stigma?
So I think for some there's still a stigma. Many seem to think that it's a childhood disorder, when for many it's a lifetime disorder. And so when you think about 85% under an unemployment rate, that's unacceptable for society, it's unacceptable for a community, but most of all, it's unacceptable for the people with autism and other disabilities that want to work and really just don't get those opportunities
What is it going
without
to
the
take?
right support.
What is it going to take for that to go away?
So
that
I
stigma?
think as more employers employ people with autism and other disabilities, they'll see the strengths and what they can bring to business, because it needs to be good for business. And as Erin said, that's such an important piece. I think the other piece is there needs to be more training programs like Project Search, to understand, research would support that if a child does not have paid employment by the time they leave high school, their chances of ever having paid employment are not very good. And so it's so important to really work on those internships during the school years.
And Erin, what would you say in the workplace? Is there also still a stigma? I know you're doing great work, but how are employees that have disabilities, special needs, are treated in the workplace?
I don't really think it is a stigma. I think it's a lack of understanding and that we're scared. And I think when you take a program like Project Search, it allows us to bring students into the workplace, work with managers and supervisors, and it strips away all those myths and anxieties, and we see people as really, really capable with a little bit of training. And so I think we really want to embrace it in business. We're just scared to do it. And there are lots of programs that teach us how to do that in the best way possible.
So your company's been around for 20 years.
Well, Children's has been around for a lot longer, but yeah, we're one of their initiatives.
All right. And you have something like 400 sites.
We do.
Okay. What do you think we'll be saying about your organization 10, 20 years from now?
Oh, wow. I hope you say that we made a huge difference in the lives of people with disabilities, and that we taught the general public to appreciate what these folks are capable of doing, that we changed the culture of employment.
I want to ask you, Lisa, for a lot of the people who are watching the show, there might be some parents who have children with special needs. What advice would you give them when they're struggling on the education part of it?
So I think it's important to work backwards. So when Andrew was very young, he was actually only 6 years old. He was in a classroom, an inclusion classroom with regular students, and his teacher said to me, "I don't understand why he's here." And she wasn't doing it because she didn't want him in the class. She just really didn't understand. She thought he would be better served in a class with children with disabilities. And so she asked my husband and I to actually write out what we wanted for Andrew. And here he was, 6 years old, and we did it, and they were sort of basic skills to get him through life. And so, as he began to get to graduation, we needed to relook at that and think forward again. Where do we want him to be in 10 years from now? We want him to have a job. So that's what we needed to focus on.
Graduation was a real milestone. Let's talk a little bit about it. So your son graduated in June. What was that moment like when you see this image of your son Andrew graduating? Tell us what you were feeling.
It was a wonderful feeling, and we were so proud of Andrew. And more importantly, Andrew was so proud of himself. He had been with these students for 12, 13 years, and they were so kind and so supportive. One of the things that happened is when Andrew his balance is, sometimes he has trouble walking downstairs. It makes him nervous. And the girl next to him, no training, she just happened to be his classmate. She walked down the bleacher steps, and she turned around and held out her hand to help him walk down the bleacher steps.
That's such a great story.
And, at the end of the day, I know as a parent, I've learned so much from him, more so than probably I've been able to teach him. And I think we've heard that from our community as well, just what an important part of the community he is.
Well, I hope our viewers today have learned a lot from both of you. Thank you so much for all the great work that you're doing.
Thank you.
Lisa Goring and Erin Riley, thank you so much. And for some students with special needs, the road through high school can be daunting and lonely. Our next group matches students to enhance their lives in the entire community. Special Best Buddies has grown from one chapter to almost 1,700 middle school, high school, and college programs across all 50 states. For 25 years, Best Buddies has been creating positive school environments while growing smiles, one dynamic duo at a time. Let's take a look at an extraordinary set of champions.
I am 19 and I'm going to Seaford High School and Barry Tech. Yeah.
My daughter is the youngest of our 4 children. We adopted her from China when she was 3.5 years old. She's classified as multiple disabilities, but she's very social, very friendly. When you meet her and talk to her for 5-10 minutes, she's very personable. For the longest time, she associated with the general ed kids more. She was in choir, she was on field hockey, she played lacrosse. So when this program came along and they said, well, we're going to team up the special ed kids with the general ed kids, it just seemed like a perfect opportunity.
People told me about Best Buddies and I kind of said, let's try it and get to know more people. That's how I found Jackie.
It really has changed my whole life. And my relationship with Ellen, my first year I wasn't paired with her, but then my second year I was. We got really close. We talked every day in school. Every time I saw her in the hallway, she said hi. It was really like I looked forward to seeing her.
Jacqueline is like 2 peas in a pod with Ellen. Ellen makes her laugh. I will hear her in her bedroom giggling about something and she's FaceTiming or talking to Ellen. They're just natural together.
No, stop. Just leave it, just leave it. Honestly, it's not like I'm a buddy, it's just I have a new friend. It's a benefit for me. I'm meeting more people, I'm doing new things, and it really opened my eyes to a lot of good things.
And it's fun, like just hanging out with someone else and getting to know them over the years.
Jackie is terrific. She goes to college, she's graduated from the high school, she takes additional night classes, she tutors, yet she still finds time to hang out with Ellen. Jackie causes her to go out and try more things or have higher ambitions. She makes Ellen feel better about herself.
We've learned so much over the years and I got to know her, and I'm really happy that I found this person and we got along so well. Jackie's special to me because she's like a big sister.
She's my best friend. I go to her for everything. Every time I get a phone call from her, I will drop anything and I'm like, oh my God, I can't wait to talk to her. She's the one person that no matter what I do, she's always gonna be there. And even though I'm away at college and
I still nag you.
You don't nag me.
It's fun.
We still keep in touch and we're still just as close as we were, if not closer, when we were in high school together, so.
She now accepts that she's a special ed student. She's not afraid of saying it to people. And I think that's part of what this program does.
Best Buddies changed me by getting stronger at times, I have to say. I got stronger by having people stand by my side and say, you're getting stronger and you're doing this.
As you can see from that very special relationship between Ellen and Jackie, Best Buddies aims to help nurture not only great friendships, but also an open and inclusive environment for special needs people at school. And our next group also speaks to the need for inclusion. It's called Special Olympics Project Unify. Of course, Special Olympics are globally renowned for athletic competitions and events for people with special needs. Project Unify also has a sports component, but it focuses on education and the broader goal of social inclusion for all special needs kids. Joining me now to tell us more about Project Unify, Susan Colocello, sorry, Susan, who oversees Project Unify in New Jersey schools. Brooke Bowers, a former high school student and a Project Unify leader. She's now attending college. And her very best friend, Alexa Aiken. Thank you so much for being with all of us. Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
So Susan, social inclusion, we hear a lot about that. Tell us why that is especially important for special needs kids.
Well, Special Olympics began an initiative 6 years ago to bring kids with and without intellectual disabilities together on the field and off the playing field. So as you mentioned, we're a sports organization, but we realized over time that friendships come out of sports, and wonderful lifelong friendships. Social inclusion is critically important for kids with disabilities and all abilities in school, because oftentimes the kids with different abilities are in a segregated classroom. So even if they can't have academic inclusion, social inclusion is critically important. So when Project Unify comes into a school, we create leadership opportunities and opportunity in general for kids of all these different abilities to come together. Social skills are developed, and it creates this community of acceptance.
Right.
And I think that's what we want for all of us. I mean, these guys have become best friends, and those social skills that are developed bring everyone up. The kids with disabilities, the kids without disabilities, everyone benefits.
And just to follow up a little bit, I mean, we've been talking a lot about special needs kids are a little bit behind on the national high school graduation rate. So in what ways does Project Unify help on the education side?
On the education side, I think it's the overall community of acceptance and cooperation, also social skills and confidence. I think one of the biggest things that comes out of participating in the unified sports and in the programs, the leadership programs, is kids with intellectual disabilities, or many kids in a school, do not feel connected to that school.
Right.
And they don't have opportunities for leadership, which pay off in the classroom. And I think that we are providing those unique opportunities so that everyone can discover their voice.
Right.
And that confidence transfers to the classroom.
Well, let's get Brooke and Alexa in on this conversation. So Brooke, you were in 9th grade when Susan brought you into a room to meet Alexa. You didn't really know what was going on. Tell us a little bit about that first meeting. What was your reaction?
I was in the peer leadership program at school, and I really liked it. And my advisor had asked me to be a part of a program because I was active in the school. And he had said, let's just go into this meeting, and can you help me out? And I said, of course. So I went to a meeting with a bunch of head honchos from Special Olympics and things like that. And I saw Lexi sitting in the room. And I've never seen her before, so I thought it was pretty cool to meet someone new. And they asked me to be a part of a program with her called Spread the Word, the End the Word, to stop using the R word in the Hamilton School District. So I just went along with it. I said, yeah, I'll help you, whatever you need me to do. I would have never thought that day that my life would have turned out like this. Being friends with Lexi it's speechless, because she's taught me more than I could ever imagine.
And how about you, Lexi? I mean, what have you learned? What have you developed in your friendship with Brooke?
My friendship with Brooke has inspired me to do anything with Special Olympics I do.
And you've known Brooke for a long time. How does it feel to be friends with Brooke?
Being friends with Brooke has it is an inspiration to me.
That is such a wonderful thing for her to say. I mean, how do you feel about your relationship with Alexa?
I watched her grow.
What have you gotten out of this relationship, I guess?
Yeah, for the last 3 years, I've watched her grow immensely, whether it was on the field, even speaking in front of people. We've spoken to a lot of schools during assemblies, and just telling them what it's like to have a friend with a disability. And when I look at Lex, I don't see her having a disability. She laughs like I do, eats like I do. We have so much fun together. She's a human before the disability.
How do you think your relationship with Alexa has changed Alexa's life?
I think it's great that I've become a big part of her life, because she gets a peer influence, and she's learned to see socially acceptable things that need to be taught. But everything she does, it's a learning experience, and I think it's great to have a peer relationship. We're both 20 years old, so it's great to have another friend that's your same age.
And Alexa, I've been really impressed that you graduated from high school, you have a job, and recently I'm told that you won the New Jersey State Bocce Ball Championship.
Yeah.
So that's another big accomplishment. How did that feel?
That is awesome. I loved it.
How did you feel about the whole thing? Must have felt good.
It made me feel happy and proud.
I bet it did. Susan, tell us a little bit about your son, who is also in special needs, 16 years old.
My son Kevin, 16.
He's in high school.
Yes.
And you said that he's had some bumpy situations along the
Yes.
way. And I know there's a story you want to tell us.
Well, Kevin is 16, like I said. He's in what they call a self-contained clutch, which is pretty frustrating for any parent of a kid with different abilities. Kevin, because of his participation in Special Olympics, is on his high school swim team. He's on his high school track and field team. I think that one of the things I wanted to say about Project Unify and the program Special Olympics brings in is that the kids that are participating, the typical kids, are also benefiting in a number of ways because they're learning to appreciate different abilities. In Project Unify, we talk about inclusive leadership and strength-based leadership, and I see my son has all these gifts that his friends couldn't understand that now they're understanding because they were on the swim team with him and playing with him. I see that in the relationship they've had where the social interactions that are needed to work and that you need to get through a day of school, your peers pull you up. And I think that that's one thing that I was very grateful for with Kevin's participation, is that Special Olympics gave him what he needed to be successful.
But one of the things is that the school that he goes to does not have this program, Project Unify. So
here I am running this program around the state, knocking on doors and every door I can handle. It's very difficult, but you don't give up. I think one of the things that it is an education process. The reason Project Unify is youth-led is because the youth are ahead of us.
Right.
I have a lot of teachers, I have a lot of administrators I have to convince, and it's coming along. But these guys are the unified generation. They're going to do this for us, and they're going to create communities. They're the next employers. They're the next group that's going to make this world come together.
We're going to be watching these new leaders. Thank you so
Yes.
much. You're all doing such a great job. Good luck to
Thank
all
you.
of you.
Thank
Brooke,
you.
Alexa, and Susan, it's been great having you on the program. Now, at the start of our program, we set the goal of saluting 1 million American Graduate champions. And thanks to the groups we've just met in this last half hour, our big tent has just gotten a lot bigger. Our new total is, get this, 1,552,242 American Graduate champions. And all I can say is wow. So thank you all for your tireless and important work. And if you too are interested in joining up, no better time than now to get involved. And Lauren, over to you. That's a lot of people working side by side to help students across the country. What are some of the American Graduate Champion stories that you've been reading?
We've got great tweets coming in, and I'm so excited to share them with you. At My Two Pretty Eyes says, my high school teachers who really kept me going and graduating. Thanks, Mrs. Hoffman, MPHS class of 1999. And at Donnie Culliff says, both of my parents are my lifelong companion. They helped me to motivate and to learn to excel in school. They are my hero. And earlier I said I'd like to share my American Graduate champion, and my champion is my sister, teacher of the deaf at John F. Kennedy School in Berlin Township, Lindsay Wonko. She is my champion because she works so hard with her students to make sure that they stay on the right track and become successful adults. And speaking of social media, we have somebody, come on, step into her shot, who has been manning the social media photo booth all day long. Sasha, thanks for joining us.
My pleasure.
Tell us, what's the activity around the booth?
So what we're doing is encouraging folks on the street today to join us to have a photo taken, hold up a sign in support of American Graduate Day, and post it directly to their Facebook or Twitter.
You've gotten a lot of people coming by.
Yes, we're in the hundreds already. We have the rest of the day to go. We are so excited.
Now, does that surprise you?
It doesn't. I think that communities love to rally around issues like this.
And we're going to keep talking about that throughout the rest of the day and on Twitter and Facebook. So a lot more ahead right here on American Graduate Day.
I'm Lynn May. We've been listening to some incredible people who are helping kids with some of the toughest challenges, special needs. In today's world, you don't often hear about the struggles of blind people. The organization Visions has been helping the blind for an impressive 88 years. They help give blind students the tools they need to live full, successful lives. You are about to meet some terrific people from Visions. Nancy Miller, Executive Director and CEO, who's been with the organization since 1971. Natalie Mark, a remarkable former participant and a current mental health counselor there. And student Andrew Zhang. Now, you know, Nancy, What kinds of things at Visions do you teach your students?
The idea is that every blind student is capable of doing everything a sighted student does, but differently. Right now, there's a 70% unemployment rate amongst blind people. Imagine that. We get upset in the sighted community if we have a 6% unemployment rate, and yet amongst the blind population, it's 70%.
Now, Natalie, how did Visions help you become more independent?
Oh man, in so many ways. When I was in college, I went to Hunter College, so they provided a orientation mobility instructor to come to my school, and they taught me how to go from one class to another, how to find a restroom, how to find the cafeteria, how to find the independence that I was taught as well, the independence that I needed to be able to navigate around the campus, and it was just a really great freedom.
And what I understand is that Visions really does a good job with technology and helping people who are impaired. How did Visions get you there?
Yeah, so with technology, Visions provided me with computer training. So if I'm reading an essay, I can use the keyboard commands to control the screen reader. So I'm able to surf the net, able to play on YouTube, do research reports for when I was in college. It's my life. I'm able to pretty much be on the same level as some of my sighted peers, just being able to use the computer.
Andrew, you lost your sight at a young age, and one of the goals of Visions is to help people get into the workforce. And you took a job at a snack bar. How did you feel about that experience?
It was definitely an eye-opener because before this, I had no idea what a job would entail. The commitment to waking up on time, getting ready, showing up, and actually being prepared. Everyone thought, what can this guy do? He can't exactly see money, he can't work a register. But no, I worked at a snack bar. I did work the register. I made coffee. I served snacks. I felt useful. It was the basis for many things to come, like other jobs I would eventually take.
But how has Visions taught you to be more independent?
At Visions, I met many other visually impaired people, and that is the most essential part of realizing who you are just by measuring yourself against other people. Meeting other visually impaired people also builds confidence in me as a person because I know I'm not the only one who's suffering.
Nancy, you have done this work for 40 years. I know you have favorite stories, but I want a favorite story, and I want to know what drives you.
Very early in my career at Visions, I met a mom named Nadia, and she came to our overnight summer program, our center, with her son. Danny was diagnosed with a condition that probably would end his life in his early teens. What Danny loved to do was bike ride, and so he got to bike ride on our tandem bikes, and that was a thrill for him. He has survived his illness longer than any other child on record, and his mom says she's absolutely convinced that it's the experiences that he had at VCB and other programs that made the difference.
Do you know what's interesting about Vision? Usually people are asking for money because they don't have enough of it, but you need something else for Visions, and it's surprising. Visibility.
Yes. People don't think about blindness, or if they do, they don't understand it. And what we're saying is, here you have this incredible potential. Let us teach you the capabilities, the abilities of blind people, not what they can't do, but what they can do.
I certainly hope that we can do some small part in helping more people know what you do and supporting your good work. Thank you so much for being here. Visions is doing important work at giving these kids back their independence. Visit AmericanGraduate.org and tell us how you plan to help in your community. Up next, we'll look at some groups that are using science and technology to keep students engaged.
American Graduate Day, a live nationwide outreach event